The Wildcats look to erase Lamar's perfect 9-0 Southland record in Moody this week. I'm Max Preston.
And I'm Grant Boone. We'll look back at a big win over Texas A&M Corpus Christi last week and preview both games this week as the second half of the Southland Conference season begins. This is the Julie Goodenough Show. Welcome to another week of the Julie Goodenough Show from the JMC Network studios at Abilene Christian University. I'm Grant Boone, alongside ACU senior journalism major Max Preston and the head coach of the Wildcat women's basketball team, Julie Goodenough. We've reached the halfway point of the Southland Conference season with the Wildcats after yet another tough road win last Wednesday. Now 14-6 overall, more important, 7-2 in league play. That's good for sole possession of third place. Coach, no game last Saturday. You had a chance a bit to reflect on the first half as you were traveling around the country recruiting. What are you most pleased with after these first 9 games? And is there anything that feels like it's the most pressing thing to improve as you start the second half?
Oh gosh, you know, I've been really pleased with just the chemistry of our team and how much they compete and practice. We practiced on Friday and then took the weekend off since we didn't have a game Saturday. I mean, Friday they were all over each other, and it was just a really competitive practice to kind of end the week with. So there's a lot of competition in practice. You know, I credit our captains, Bree, Dom, Jazz, Sarah, for just bringing great energy every day in practice. I think that we're playing with a lot of confidence right now. I think the area that I'd like to see us to continue to improve on is just playing team defense for 30 seconds. I mean, a lot of times we'll play really good team defense for about 27 seconds and then we'll have a lapse right at the end. Yeah. And so we've got to figure out how to play all the way through the shot clock or until we get a stop. But we're at a really good place, I think, right now, offensively and defensively. But obviously you'd like for you know, your players to continue to grow as a team and just put possession after possession together and not take any possessions off.
By the way, that 7-2 mark, even more impressive. 6 of those first 9 games were on the road. Well done.
So last week you were named to the Big Country Sports Hall of Fame, so congrats on that.
Thank
what do
you.
you have to say to the Abilene community, though, about that accolade?
Well, gosh, it's a huge honor, and when I looked at the class going in, it's just it's an unbelievable honor, and really appreciate being considered for that. You know, the first thing I think is, why did I ever leave Abilene? You know, like, Abilene is where I've had the most success. I love the Abilene community. My husband and my daughters and I, we're very well invested in sports in town, and you know, love the coaches at the other universities and have a lot of respect for them, respect for all the awesome high school coaches in town. I've appreciated all the support from Hardin Simmons folks, you know, that I got to know years ago when I first started my coaching career. I see them sprinkled throughout our crowd at ACU games still, and then it's just a privilege to be coaching at Abilene Christian and to be able to be here when ACU made the transition from the Lone Star to the Southland Conference has been a real privilege, and just love the big country. I enjoyed growing up in Haskell, Texas. Played a couple of years over in Snyder at Western Texas, so I love the big country and I love Abilene for sure.
Hometown girls made good, hadn't she? That's May 6th, by the way, that induction ceremony. So that means you can go ahead and win the Southland Conference tournament, go ahead and win the NCAAs. You'll have a month off to recover, and then you can have the induction. So that is a, in all seriousness, a well-deserved honor. John Lackey, among others, going in. It's cool to see those other names, isn't it?
Very much.
Because we know those all, don't we? All right, well-deserved. We will preview this week's games as we start the second half of the season in just a bit. But when we come back, a recap of last week's thriller down in the Gulf. This is the Julie Goodenough Show. Just one game last week for the ACU women's basketball team. That was Wednesday, then the first of 2 off days during the season. Coach, you went down to take on a Corpus Christi team that was really playing well, weren't they? They were 4-2, the Islanders, in league play, and they had a full week to prepare for your team. Yet through 2 quarters, you led 36-22. You really kind of dominated in every area. You limited their leading scorer, Dalacia Booth, to just 2 points. Other than maybe a turnover or 2 too many, how complete was that first half execution?
Gosh, the offensive execution was at a really high level. We really found our open teammates. We called a lot of different sets. Our players executed very well. We knocked down the open shots. We got some key defensive stops that allowed us to score some in transition in the first half. So we were really pleased with, especially the offensive execution in the first half. And, once again, I felt like a broken record in the locker room, like, get ready. The second half, they're going to come back with a little different game plan, and Coach Chadwick's going to have them fired up, and they're going to correct some mistakes they made. And sure enough, we saw a completely different level of defensive intensity out of the Islanders when we came back after halftime.
So in that second half, you control it pretty well. You're up by double digits most of the time, but in that last minute, yeah, you're only up by one. In college basketball, do you find it hard to keep a big lead throughout the game?
It is hard. It's a mentality for sure, and at the Division I level, no lead is big enough. It doesn't matter who you're playing against, and you've got to keep your players locked in, because you do get a certain level of comfortability when you get like a double-digit lead, maybe late in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter. We had some turnovers that were pretty costly at the end of the third and then throughout the fourth quarter. But really credit our players for knocking down free throws down the stretch, getting some key stops down the stretch. Another great challenge for our team to see, have to face some adversity, and are we going to throw in the towel, or are we going to overcome the adversity? And they were able to piece some nice possessions together toward the end of the game to come out with the win.
We talk about players in every sport having short memories. It's super important, though, isn't it? I mean, it's like, if you think too much about the fact that, oh my goodness, we were up 20, now we're only up 1, you're probably not going to deliver a jump shot the way that you need to, or stand up there and make your free throws the way that Dom and Bree did in that closing minute. Short memory is a good thing to have in sports, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, our players are doing a great job with shot selection. We have been leading conference play, I think pretty much from start to finish, leading the league in the top field goal percentage. And so our players don't take bad shots, but they know and they recognize when their shot is open, and regardless of the situation, whether it's pressure packed or we've got a comfortable lead, they know when they're supposed to take their shot. And I really credit just the maturity of like our juniors, like, Dom and Bree, Lexi Duque, our senior leader, Sarah, like down the stretch, maybe when we've lost a couple of possessions, they have some composure about them because they've been in these situations several times before, and they kind of know what to do. And so it is nice this year to have a little more experience play out on the floor in those crunch periods of time.
Yeah.
So you had a weekend bye after the Corpus Christi game. I think weekend byes are a little better than Wednesday byes because they still have to go to class during the week. So how did you balance practice and rest and this time off?
Well, this was our first bye, and we go down and we play Corpus. They've already had both their byes,
yeah,
and this is our first break really since the day after Christmas. And so on Thursday we did a ton of recovery exercises. We did some yoga. We did everything that we could that afternoon to help recover. And then on Friday we had a pretty tough practice, did a lot of conditioning, lots of down and back, up and down the floor, and it was very competitive. And then Friday, my staff and I were all over the state of Texas recruiting. It gave us an opportunity to send 4 coaches out and watch some key recruits. Saturday and Sunday, the girls had some exercises to do at home. They had shooting assignments, so they were on their own. And I'm sure that they made great choices, and they're going to be ready to get back on the floor today. So we enjoyed the time off, since we haven't had any time off really in about a month and a half. So we would expect to have some fresh legs today in practice, and people just just mentally, maybe even more than physically, just mentally ready to learn and lock in to this new scouting report.
You need yoga when you've been cramped up on a bus, don't
No
you?
doubt. That's
Get
right.
a couple of down dogs going. By the way, one quick note just to wrap up this segment. No one in the Southland Conference, I looked this up because what else do I have to do besides look up nuggets like this? No one in the league will, over the course of the year, play more teams coming off of a bye than Abilene Christian. The men and women's teams at ASU have 4 games. In fact, you've already played all 4 against teams that have had that extra time to rest. Now the tables are turned. You've had a little extra time, and it's probably good because coming in to Moody Coliseum on Wednesday night, it is the preseason pick to win the league, and the team that is tied with Stephen F. Austin with no losses so far in conference play, the Lamar Cardinals. We will preview that game and the game on Saturday against Sam Houston State when we come back on the Julie Goodenough Show. 2 games on the schedule for the ASU women's basketball team this week, both at home, beginning with the preseason pick to win the league, the Lamar Cardinals. Certainly they have lived up to their preseason billing with their suffocating pressure defense led by Chastity Bars and Mo Kennard. They're leading the league at 9-0. Stephen F. Austin is at 8-0. Your team coach is 2 games back at 7-2. I know it's one of 18 games, okay? This one feels big to me. How do you approach it with your team? Do you want them to just say this is just the next game on the schedule, it's one of 18, or do you want them to say, hey, this is the preseason number 1?
Yeah, and we'll address that with them. And I mean, Lamar, they definitely earned the recognition of being the preseason favorite. They have such an incredible group of returners that were so successful last year. The thing that we'll really talk about, though, is this is the last of the teams in our conference that we only play one time. And so if you only play a team one time, you better get them that one time that you have them. And, you know, maybe you see some of those teams back in the conference tournament at the end of the year, but, you know, we get Lamar one time in regular season play. And so we need to give them our best shot. And so we put a lot into the scouting report and the prep for those teams we only play one time because, you know, you want to get them that one time you get to play them.
So as a coach, you know, you're just looking at Lamar right now, but, you know, if you look ahead to Saturday, Sam Houston State, they're a team. They have 73.2 points per game right now. How do you just right now think about stopping them defensively?
Well, a lot that we do the next couple of days to get ready for Lamar, that will carry over into our scout for Sam Houston. And interestingly, we're playing Sam Houston. It's the first time that we're playing a team that we're going to play twice. And so, you know, we beat them at their place. We know that they're going to want to come take one away from us in our home court, and so, you know, there's a different mentality about that. Like, hey, this is our first time to sweep our first opportunity to sweep an opponent this year, and so, you know, we'll talk about what that mentality needs to look like. But Sam Houston has a new staff this year, and they are much improved. I mean, they're playing really well together as a team. They've got some good scoring weapons and do a nice job changing their defense up. You know, you don't know if they're going to press or be in man or they'll be in a 2-3 zone. So they really try to get you out of rhythm offensively. So that again will be another. It'll be a good challenge on Saturday.
You've had 2 games this year in which you've scored more than 90 points in conference play. That was one of them over there in Huntsville, 91. By the way, probably not too early to remind everyone that the top 2 teams at the end of the regular season get to skip the first 2 rounds of the Southland Conference Tournament. Teams that finish 3rd and 4th in the league get to skip the first round. So we're keeping an eye on the standings for these final 5 weeks and the second half of the conference season. ASU currently 3rd place alone at 7-2. We need some big crowds, don't we, this week at home for the 2 women's games. Then the doubleheader Saturday, women first, then men against Sam Houston State. You can watch all of these games on ESPN Plus or ESPN3, produced by the ASU TV studios. For Max and for the coach, I'm Grant Boone. Thanks for watching this week's edition of the Julie Goodenough Show.